Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? We'll get to the game in a second. Let me start, though, with what was actually newsworthy today, and that's Deaonte Harris. The 3-game suspension came down for his DUI arrest. He is appealing. How should they handle this?
Yeah, look, it's a really interesting situation, right? I mean, the new CBA, as it states, is that basically the minimum is a 3-game suspension. So what the NFL handed down, which sounds like it came through last week, and then Harris and his team began the appeals process immediately, which is what allowed him to play yesterday in the Thanksgiving night game up against the Buffalo Bills. Usually it's sort of that 3-game minimum, and then they can add some stuff on top of that. But the thing that's interesting is that I understand where Harris's appeal comes from, because he pled not guilty, he was not charged, and he was put on supervised probation for a year. So it's a little bit of a different precedent. So I understand the grounds of it, but my expectation is that, look, it's going to be a 3-game minimum, and the appeals process is allowing them to sort of delay the inevitable 3 games for as much as they could. There's a chance that this appeals process could last long enough to make it so that he could play and be on the field up against Dallas this coming Thursday, and then maybe sort of bridge the gap in between some other explosive players like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram potentially returning to the lineup in the next couple of weeks, however long their injuries were to keep them out. That could be very well the circumstance, but I would certainly expect at this point for him to miss some combination of 3 of the next 4 games over the season. I don't think the NFL is going to come in under that 3-game minimum.
Ross, is it wrong of me just to say, just sit the guy and start losing?
In terms of Deontay Harris,
just sit him. And Harris and Kamara, no reason to bring him back if he's not right.
I've heard a lot of people mention that, and I think I agree with that if there's uncertainty around the injury, especially for Alvin Kamara, right? He's a running back. He's a guy that had a ton of touches early on in the season. For a while, he was top 3 in touches, somewhere around 23 to 25 per game at certain points of the season, even up to 26 at one point. And so he packed on a lot of touches early. These running back injuries can compound and cause injuries long after the season in which they are actually afflicted, if you will. And so I understand that entirely, especially when it comes down to if that injury is something that you can't guarantee is 100% full. If there is any risk of re-injury at this point, I could understand the Saints playing it safe with individual players. But I think that they'll want to remain competitive and try to prove to the NFL world at large, and particularly try to put together a compelling sort of, slate over these last 6 games to convince maybe some high priority free agents or even some of the guys they're trying to retain within the building that there's a reason to come to this team in 2022.
All right. So Ross Jackson's with us, Locked On Saints podcast. Make sure, however you get your podcast, make sure you're subscribed. All right. Looking at the schedule, they're at 5-6. Looking at the schedule, give me what is the realistic. Now, understand, this is a team that didn't score for 3 quarters last night. It didn't score in the first half against Philly. What is a realistic best-case scenario for the New Orleans Saints for the remainder of the season?
Realistic best-case scenario to me is 3-3. And the 3 games that I look at in particular are the 3 quarterbacks that have somehow been more inefficient than Trevor Siemian so far this season. And those 3 quarterbacks, those 3 teams, would be the New York Jets, that would be the Miami Dolphins, and then, of course, also the Carolina Panthers. Now, 2 of those, actually all 3 of those teams are kind of juggling quarterbacks as well, just like the New Orleans Saints are. Those are the only 3 that I could look at to where the Saints could potentially get more efficient quarterback play from what I expect will be Taysom Hill moving forward rather than Trevor Siemian, than what the opposing quarterback will be. You look at where Trevor Siemian is amongst all quarterbacks so far this season with over 100 passing attempts, 33 of about 45 qualifying quarterbacks. That's where he ranks in terms of efficiency ratings. If you take out the 4th quarter, dead last. Dead last in terms of quarters 1 through 4. With all quarterbacks this season that have attempted more than 100 passes, he's the least efficient quarterback. I think you have to change from him. If you do, when you go with Taysom Hill and he gives you that extra dynamic of the run game, then maybe you can get more efficient quarterback play than those 3 teams, which gives you some opportunity to go 3-3 this season.
Okay. That would still only put you at 8 and 9. You're not getting in the playoffs. So I guess the real question is, like, what are you trying to accomplish the rest of the way? I gave my answer earlier in the show. I'll ask you. If you're the Saints, what are you trying to accomplish the rest of the way? Because I think we agree, realistically, the playoffs are not an option anymore.
Yep. Yeah, I don't look at this team as a playoff team anymore. So to me, what it is that they're playing for is that they have some quality free agents, such as, let's say, Marcus Williams, that help to make this team, assuming that they're able to continue to build around what they do have when they are healthy going into 2022, ideally healthy by then. You have some players that you want to retain, so you don't want to show any type of quit or give up at any point in the season that would make those players second-guess returning. It's going to be hard enough from a monetary standpoint or a fiscal standpoint to get a guy like Marcus Williams back. You don't want to give him a reason to not come back because of the team culture. The other thing is that I would imagine that this would be a team that would very much want to show that fight and be able to show free agents around the NFL, because they're a little bit more surefire to go out there and sign a free agent that could be an immediate impact than draft a rookie that's an immediate impact. The statistics just sort of say that one is more likely than the other. To be able to convince players to come back to this New Orleans Saints team or to join this New Orleans Saints team, I think that becomes a big selling point for them, is how they finish out these last 6 games. If they can show fight, if they can show a competitive spirit, and if they can still show some semblance of that winning and competitive mentality that this team has always had, that has made them a free agency destination, then I think that benefits them going into the 2022 offseason ahead of the 2022 season, when they're looking to be healthier and be able to add to sort of the missing pieces, saying, look at how strong we were able to finish out a season where we dealt with Hurricane Ida, dealt with the COVID limitations around the coaching staff not being available and inundated with injuries, and you are the missing piece for a potential playoff or championship run for this team.
What are you anticipating from Taysom Hill? Like, can you, first of all, if you would go back and make sense of what's happening right now with Taysom, and then for the remainder of the season, what's in anticipation there?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at Taysom Hill, particularly over the last 2 weeks, you're looking at a guy right now that they felt comfortable enough having as the emergency backup. And I know a lot of people have said, well, they were down 24-0. Is that not enough of an emergency? But the emergency is more so in reference to Trevor Siemian and injury and things like that. So they had him as the emergency quarterback, but didn't feel comfortable playing him at his usual Swiss Army knife role because of the potential of that foot injury continuing to get worse. He was full on the injury report relative to what the walkthroughs were throughout practice that week, as opposed to full speed practices with the quick turnaround from Sunday to Thursday. So that's one of the reasons why you see a little bit of what feels like a disjointed piece of information there, but there's actually a reason behind it. So to me, what that says is that the New Orleans Saints didn't want to risk putting Taysom Hill out there in that Swiss Army knife sort of slasher joker role and him getting injured to where they can't turn to him toward the end of the season here, where he at least gives you that extra dynamic. And I think that is what you're looking for moving forward throughout the rest of the season. I mean, you've lost 4 straight for the first time in several years. You're not getting anywhere. You have one of the most inefficient quarterbacks, if not the most inefficient quarterback, playing for you, at least quarters 1 through 3 in the NFL right now. What do you have to lose from changing over and switching to Taysom Hill? Even if you don't believe that you're going to be able to get into the playoffs, you still need to show some kind of fight, some kind of bite. And I think that Taysom Hill at least gives you something different, something that's going to allow you to be able to convert a third down in the first half, something that's going to allow you to be able to pick up a third and short or a fourth and short in situations where Trevor Siemian was not. And it gives you the legs on Taysom Hill that maybe will allow you to be able to turn some of those sacks and the inability to understand, read pressure, walk yourself into pressure, some of the things that we saw from Trevor Siemian. Those plays might look a little bit different with Taysom Hill under center. And I think that that's what it is that you're looking for to give this team some fight in the last 6 games.
Ross, no look at Ian Book?
I don't think at this point. I would say that if the Saints went on and they lost to Dallas, they catastrophically found a way to lose against the Jets, and then maybe even lost against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then maybe you start to get a look at Ian Book, especially if all 3 of those losses come with Taysom Hill as your starter. Then maybe you say, okay, let's get a look at the young guy. The season is officially over at that point. By then, I imagine you'd be mathematically eliminated, depending upon what the rest of the atrocious NFC is looking like at that point. So I think you would get a look at Ian Book there. That wouldn't surprise me, but I don't think you go to him right away.
All right. Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints podcast. However you listen to your podcast, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Saints. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Do you want to give an early thought on the Dallas game on Thursday?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it depends upon, who's in, who's out, right? I mean, we're going to be keeping an eye on Mark Ingram's injury in particular. Who knows what to think about Alvin Kamara's injury right now? C.J. Gardner-Johnson just announced earlier this week that he got off the scooter, but I don't know if that means that he's going to be ready to go in a week. And so I think that it depends. I mean, if you're looking at this same offense walking in, going up against Dallas, and a Dallas offense that is still able to attack without its top wide receiver options like we saw in that fiery Thanksgiving game that they played up against the Raiders, then I think you might end up seeing, I don't want to say a repeat performance, but maybe a similar performance to what you saw up against maybe Philly or against the Buffalo Bills. So I don't expect great things for this Saints team, but I will expect a little bit of a spark and maybe some fireworks if they're able to return some of these players and come back and try to make a little bit of a statement for themselves. I'm not predicting a win here against Dallas, but I think you would do to show a little bit more fight from this New Orleans Saints team, or see a little bit more fight from this New Orleans Saints team than you were able to see them be capable of over the last two.
Let's tank.
You're all about them draft picks, huh?
Let's go. I mean,
go and get the draft position.
Let's go. Let's go. Ross Jackson, we appreciate the time. Thanks, man.
Hey, brother, always a pleasure. Good to hear from you, man. Y'all stay safe.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.